If you don't count the several centuries of 2020 so far, it's been nearly 5 years since Pandemic Legacy first hit the tabletop in 2015. Pandemic Legacy Season 1 took the popular card game about a group of specialists travelling the world to stop the spread of disease and added a campaign told over the course of at least 12 separate playthroughs. Or more, depending on how many you want. Each new month of the game's year-long storyline unlocked new gameplay elements, rules and even pieces to play with, tucked into boxes and secret folders inside the box. And every decision you made had a real impact too, with stickers stuck to the board, cards scribbled on with pens, or even torn into shreds as the game reacted to your group's efforts to save the world. No two groups had exactly the same experience, but one thing everyone seemed to have in common was agreeing just how bloody good it was. Half a decade on, and while there have been plenty of attempts, nothing has quite come close to capturing the same excitement, tension and surprise of Pandemic Legacy Season 1. That is, apart from Pandemic Legacy Season 2, which flipped the original Pandemic's Remove the Cubes challenge on its head as players globetrotted to supply vaccines to countries around the world. You'd have to find them first though. The new game wiped the board clean at the start of its 12-month campaign, having players reveal sections of the map by placing stickers as they explored the post-apocalyptic world. Of course, there were plenty more surprises in store when it came to Season 2's boxes and envelopes too, such as and honestly, I'm an even bigger fan of Season 2 than Season 1, but whichever has your preference, it's safe to say the sequel certainly didn't disappoint. Later this year, the third, and according to its creators' final, Pandemic Legacy game lands. It's not Season 3 though. Instead, Pandemic Legacy Season 0 takes the universe back to its origins, with a story set before the outbreak. But while the time period may be making a jump back, it's clear that the gameplay and story are only moving forward, hopefully making for a fittingly grand finale to one of the best board game series of all time, or the perfect place to start if you're totally new. So get those permanent markers at the ready and prepare to rip and tear. Here are 9 reasons you should be excited about Pandemic Legacy. Here are 9 reasons to be excited about Pandemic Legacy Season 0. Number 1 is the final game in the Pandemic Legacy trilogy. Don't let that name fool you. Season 0 is the third installment in the Pandemic Legacy series, and according to co-creators Matt Leacock and Rob Daviau, the final chapter of a trilogy the designers always planned to bring to an end with this game. The pair have never been shy of packing twists and shocks into the previous Legacy games, and there's little doubt that they'll see the series out with a bang here. Of course, we won't know exactly what's in store until we tear that first envelope open. Number 2, it's also a prequel. As the name suggests, Season 0 takes place before Season 1 and 2 of Pandemic Legacy. With the global outbreak of disease already underway by the time Season 1 opens, Season 0 will give us a look at the world before it starts to slide into the state seen in the original Pandemic, a brand new perspective on the universe. In fact, at the beginning of Season 0, there were only rumours of diseases. Instead of rushing to find infections, keep them contained and find a cure, you'll be trying to work out the what, when, where and why before it happens. With such a different take on the now classic format of Pandemic, Season 0 looks set to offer a very different experience from the rest of the series. 3. The background of the Cold War looms large. Pandemic Legacy Season 2 took place a generation after the modern day setting of the first season. Season 0 takes a similarly big jump, but this time into the past, playing out in the shadow of the Cold War's frosty peak in 1962. The tense relations between the Eastern and Western blocs and technology of the time mean that travelling around the globe to gather information won't be like any previous Pandemic game. While the map starts fully revealed, unlike Season 2's hidden board, players will have to contend with the new difficulty of accessing cities affiliated with the US, Soviet Union or neither. The political tension means that players will have to carefully manage teams of experts to ensure they can carry out their secretive tasks in the right places at the right time, whether that's East Berlin or Leningrad. 4. There's all the tension of a classic spy thriller. In keeping with the political intrigue of its Cold War backdrop, Season 0 is heavily inspired by spy thrillers, with the designers saying they drew inspiration from classic films such as 3 Days of the Condor and the real-life history of the CIA. As in previous Pandemic games, players' characters are still medical specialists, but they've been recruited by the CIA to serve as secret agents on the hunt for a rumoured Soviet bioweapon. They'll have to use multiple identities, with players getting real-life passports to create their covert personas and make use of disguises. Just because there are no disease cubes on the board at the start of the game doesn't mean there isn't plenty of tension from the get-go either. Soviet agents are searching for the player characters to stop them from uncovering their plan, forcing the players into a cat and mouse chase as they try to stay one step ahead.
5. Expect plenty more surprises in the box.
Pandemic Legacy wouldn't be Pandemic Legacy without, well, the whole legacy thing. Season 1's unlockable boxes, permanent changes to the board and gut-wrenching instructions to destroy cards were taken one step further in Season 2, with scratch-off panels, whole sections of the board added with stickers, and, well, plenty more we can't mention without spoiling everything. Season 0 has some of the series' most impressive presentation off the bat, including leatherette passports, but there's also the promise to discover even more while we play. That includes a debrief book full of potential events that could happen, or not, depending on each group's decision, throwing up even more surprises during a story full of mystery as you embark on your own thriller. It's hard to say more about what's in store without spoiling things, but it seems certain that the latest Pandemic Legacy will have us guessing at what comes next as much as ever. 6. Losing isn't quite as punishing. The original Pandemic was no slouch when it came to kicking players' asses, and Pandemic Legacy followed that trend, with playthroughs that could see your latest attempt to save the world quickly go sideways. Luckily, you always had a second shot at achieving victory during each month, with the game balancing an unlucky streak with helpful boosts to avoid frustration. Season 0 makes the win or lose outcome even more granular, introducing a third outcome depending on how many objectives players achieve during each game. Your success rate can lead to different story events and discoveries, and a varying reaction from your in-game overseers at the CIA. But even if you don't ace every mission, you're more likely to come away feeling like you've achieved something in the face of tough odds. 7. It's been polished to perfection. Although it's the last Pandemic Legacy game to release, Season 0 was in the works a year before Season 2 came out in 2017. The designers say they spent more time working on Season 0 than either of the two games, with development only completed last year. With the bulk of the game's gameplay and story finished relatively early on, a lot of that time was spent refining the experience to make it as good as possible. That means what we find in the box should be immaculately polished, hopefully making the longer wait more than worth it. 8. If you're new, you can start here. Season 0 is the third Pandemic Legacy game to come out. But just as you didn't need to play Season 1 before Season 2, you can dive right in here if you haven't played either of the previous games, or any Pandemic game for that matter. While series fans will find plenty of nods and references to events and themes in the past two games to appreciate, Season 0's gameplay and story work as a standalone experience that you can play completely by itself, or as the first in the trilogy. 9. It's the most personal Pandemic game yet. One of the best things about Pandemic Legacy, whichever season you prefer, is the way it lets you and your friends tell a unique story together. You name the characters and places, make tough decisions about how events play out, to some degree anyway, and make the experience completely your own. It's little wonder that some fans have taken to framing their personalised board and cards as a memento of the time they spent together. Season 0 hands even more control to players, going beyond the character customization in Seasons 1 and 2, with personalised multiple aliases of agents, custom appearances and more. The story is also dictated even more by the player's choices, with the narrative branching differently for every group that plays. By the time you reach the final moment, you'll have a one-of-a-kind experience that you've all shared together, and that hopefully you won't forget anytime soon.